I think this secondary might be the strongest that they've had in the complete package, which is saying something because you got Josh Hayes, Julius Brents, Echo Boydo in that secondary of the Big 12 championship team. I think this secondary can be right there with them.
This is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
Hello and welcome into another edition of 3Ma. I am John Kurtz, joined by Derek Young and Cole Manbeck here today for some defensive over-unders as we march toward the beginning of the 2024 K-State football season. And as you guys know, the season being right around the corner means you don't have very much time left to stock up for tailgate season or get ready for the last few lake weekends, and you can do all of that through our friends at Holiday Distillery. You can get your Ben Holiday bottled in bond bourbon, which we hear great things about all the time. All you got to do is ask Cole or DY about that. They will certainly tell you how awesome it is. Ben Holiday bottled in bond bourbon or 360 vodka. Get both of them. You know you're going to need both of those for a tailgate. You got people with different tastes all over the place. So be ready at Bill Snyder Family Stadium this fall with our friends at Holiday Distillery, great Cat fans who support us here on the show. Okay, the offensive over-unders, I would say pretty popular. Not only did we get good feedback in the Discord, patreon.com/Fremont to join there, but just talking to somebody this morning at the gym who gave some positive feedback on the offensive over-unders episode. So Cole, despite, maybe a little bit of consternation about how you actually set the over-unders, it sounds like the people are excited. Got them fired up for the season. So it's probably because you had K-State setting this school record that's ever existed that probably got everybody fired up. But either way, I mean, that works for us. So
yeah, well, actually, there was a post on DY on KSO about the over-under numbers, and I thought they made some great points about the defenses K-State faced last year, and the opponent defenses will not be as good this year that the Wildcats will go up against. So the expectation is that they should maybe even make a bigger jump, John, on the over-unders. Maybe I went too low. I might have went too low. I'm raising Keegan Johnson to 950.
They mentioned basically four top 20 defenses between NC State, Missouri, Texas, teams like that won't be on the schedule this time around, which is, a valid data point to include.
Yeah, I should have included that in my defense.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. Now I know NC State was without its best player, but you also had Avery Johnson making his first start at quarterback. Maybe those cancel each other out, so we can say, yeah, NC State, Mizzou, Texas, all pretty good. Mizzou's defensive coordinator got hired at LSU. We know how good Texas was last year making the college football playoff. So, okay.
And John, I mean, DY was at media availability on Tuesday, and Keegan Johnson was there looking bigger and stronger than ever by all accounts, right, DY? I mean, I think he's ready.
He looked impressive. Yep.
I heard DY say he was very, very mature. It seemed like a real man. I heard you ask that question to Connor Riley. You've seen the evolution of Keegan Johnson from a boy into a man. So, he's a grown man, Cole.
You must have listened to our Patreon pod we recorded last night.
Oh, he did. He listened to the press conference.
Oh, cool. Well, there's a Patreon pod recapping the football press conference with DY and I, and also a basketball recruiting pod dropping on there about K-State being in the mix for 3 top 10 guys in the 2025 class as well. That will drop on Thursday. So, all right. You guys ready for the football over-unders on defense? And by the way, guys, we are going to talk some special teams as part of this, give some special teams over-unders. And actually, rather than do a special teams preview on its own, we're going to kind of bake that in here and spend 5-10 minutes talking about special teams, because it was a weak point for Kansas State last year, is something that John was very upset about. It felt like every time we jumped on a post-game pod, and deservedly so. There were a lot of miscues last year.
Yeah, well, I mean, a good way to remedy that is to go hire a literal NFL special teams coach, and that's what K-State's done. So I'm fired up about that. I am definitely much more optimistic about it, and pull in an elite returner out of the portal in Dylan Edwards. So they've done a pretty good job, I would say, on paper, in addressing special teams so far. But yeah, we'll get to that. We are going to start with the defensive over-unders, and to get it kicked off, of course, it's going to be the biggest storyline of the week, which is brought to you by our friends at Alenco. If you have any home improvement needs, whether you're in the Kansas City area or anywhere just around here, Alenco. AlencoHome.com is where you can get that figured out. So, Cole, kick us off, courtesy of our friends at Alenco.
Listen, K-State allowed 1.91 points per drive last year. That ranked 34th in the country, and it tied for the third best by a K-State defense since at least 2005. Can't go back farther than that, according to Brian Freemouth's points per drive metric. And 2 of the last 3 seasons, they've allowed an average of 1.95 points per drive. Actually, that's over the last 3 seasons, an average of 1.95 points per drive. And the 1.91 last year ranked 3rd in the entire Big 12. So where do you think this unit ranks when it comes to points per drive, which I think is one of the best stats that you can utilize rather than points per game? Where do the Wildcats finish in the Big 12 in the new 16-team league in 2024 as far as points per drive allowed?
Well, I would say, why don't we set the under at like 3.5? 3.5. Are they finishing higher than 3rd or lower or 4th or lower?
Yeah, better or worse than 3rd. You got to kind of come in here and figure out who the best defenses in the Big 12 are going to be. Some you won't know as well because there's a lot of new teams. I think Arizona's in the discussion, but new league probably makes that a little bit tougher on them. I do like Utah's. I do like Oklahoma State's. I do like Iowa State's. So that's 3. But, I will say better. I think kids staying getting that top 3.
Tough. I mean, you just outlined the difficulty of it. Like, I think Utah, Iowa State, and Oklahoma State will all have very good defenses. Oklahoma State has more like known star power. That would be the one that I would think you have a better chance of usurping there if you're going to be in the top 3 in the Big 12. And I am very high on Oklahoma State. You guys know that. But, I'll join you, DY. I'll say K-State finishes 3rd.
Interestingly enough, the one with the most star power might be Arizona because the guys like Takario Davis and Jacob Manu, to be honest. Oklahoma State's got that too. I'm probably coming around on it even more this week because it just sounds like Kansas State believes they have probably the best secondary they've had under Chris Kleiman. When you add in the potential of the pass rush, the linebackers getting there, I think this can be a really good unit.
I mean, the Alec Marinko injury might be one thing that pulls you back just a little bit on that.
A little bit, man. It sounds like it would be even if he's healthy, he could lose that battle to Austin Romaine. That's how good Austin Romaine is right now.
I think the defense is going to be the strength of this football team, and I think they will. I think they'll make an even bigger jump, potentially even go below 1.91 points per drive, which is the best in the Kleiman era. And I think they'll be top 3 in the Big 12. Utah will present a challenge there. Iowa State as well, though Iowa State finished behind K-State in points per drive last year, but a lot of returning experience and depth on that defensive side of the ball for Iowa State. So I'll say 3, but 3.5 is a good number because of Utah and Arizona. Utah ranked 24th in the country last year at 1.76 points per drive. I mentioned K-State was 1.91, ranking 34th. Arizona, 1.83 points per drive last year, ranked 27th in the country. And then Oklahoma State, John, gosh, I had to scroll so far down on the net points per drive ranking on Brian Freemouth's website to get to them because Oklahoma State was 64th in net points per drive, which factors in the differential between offensive and defensive points per drive. The Cowboys last year, 2.21 points per drive allowed, ranking 63rd in college football.
Yeah, what I will say about Oklahoma State is they haven't competently or successfully yet replaced Jim Knowles.
Well, they have, yeah. I mean, I think for hiring a guy that came from the D2 ranks, like finishing in the 60s in points per drive is like, it's not terrible. And Gundy has kind of groomed these guys before. So I wouldn't write the full story on that if I'm going to defend Mike Gundy and company a little bit here. And Cole, they did have a couple of first team preseason All Big 12 selections. You recall K-State had 0. So, the linebackers in particular at Oklahoma State are pretty stacked.
Championships aren't won in the preseason, John. They're not won on paper, So preseason Big 12 picks. Woo, dude, Mike Gundy for president. Woo. I'm just saying,
The Kansas State's, when they won the Big 12, they did have their best preseason All Big 12 picks. They had 6 or 7 that year, right?
Why don't you just shut up, BY, right
I was playing counter to what you just said because, the year the Kansas State won the Big 12, I think they had 7 preseason All Big 12 picks.
Yeah, we went through it on the drive down to media days that year, and we're marveling at the number of guys that K-State had on the All Big 12 team. So, bottom line, I think Wildcats finished top 3 in the Big 12, and we'll get into some of the over-unders as to why that might be. But first, go to alencohome.com. Again, that's ALENCO home.com for all of your home improvement needs. Check out our guys at Alenco. You can also give Sam, who's a great K-Stater, a call at 913-961-2165. He'll get you taken care of and answer any questions you have. You can probably talk some K-State football here as well. We know Sam is excited for the Wildcats. So Alenco, terrific local business, family owned and operated out of the Kansas City area. And best of all, they're owned by Kansas Staters. So go support a K-State owned business that's locally owned, not sold out to private equity, and will provide all your top tier home improvement needs from siding, windows replacement to bathroom remodels. They've got it all at Alenco. Go over to alencohome.com or again, give Sam a call at 913-961-2165. All right. Well, I'll just take it from here, John, and we'll dive into the next over-under. And let's start with one that DY laughed at my number that I gave last year on the over-under and said it was way too high. And then it ended up being right on the mark, and K-State went slightly over. So K-State tied for 20th in the country last year with 23 turnovers forced, 13 interceptions, 10 fumble recoveries. They tied for third in the Big 12 with Oklahoma State. Last year, only Texas and OU forced more turnovers. In 2022, K-State forced 24 turnovers, which ranked in a tie for 14th in the country, 16 interceptions, 8 fumble recoveries. That was number one in the Big 12 and tied for number one with Utah and the new look Big 12, if you look ahead. Forced 18 turnovers in 21. But let's just merge the average here of the last two seasons' turnovers forced, which is 47, comes out to an average of 23.5 per season. And let's set the over-under right there. 23.5 turnovers forced by the K-State defense. What are you taking?
I'm surprised that number was as high as it was last year, not because of what I said in the preseason, but I remember for much of the year we were complaining about not forcing enough turnovers, it felt like. So I'm kind of stunned that it got to that. Maybe a little bit of a late flurry towards the finish of the year helped with that. That's the only thing that I can think of. I'll go over this time just because, again, hearing so much about having an elite secondary, and I think the pass rush is going to be vastly improved because, quite frankly, it can't get much worse.
I think Marquise Siegel had told us, that he's been on the jugs machine, right? He's been working on actually snatching some interceptions. I mean, think about what last year would have been.
He could have had 24 himself.
Yeah, right? I mean, you could have had an extra 4 or 5 turnovers there. And if the pass rush really is going to be improved, I think that should help in just creating a little bit of extra havoc. So this is one, and they've been really good at this. Like, this is Joe Kleinerman. I listened, Cole, to the interview you did with him the other day, and he was talking about, like, that's the number one thing that they're concerned with on defense. So I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. I think they've earned it for right now, and I'll take the over.
Yeah, they had 16 interceptions in 22, which tied for number 10 in the country, and then they had 13 interceptions in 2023, so last season, which tied for 25th in the country. I think this secondary might be the strongest that they've had in the complete package, which is saying something because you got Josh Hayes, Julius Brents, Echo Boydo, and that secondary of the Big 12 championship team. I think this secondary can be right there with them. Yeah, I'll take the over on total turnovers forced. I'm going to take over 23.5 just because they've been so good at it over the last couple of years, and it's obviously a value point that they emphasize as a program, according to Joe Kleinerman. So taking the over on turnovers forced, which I guess we could then jump in here to interceptions by players. So let me go down. This is a hard one to gauge always. Interceptions are really hard, so are sacks, actually, but because it depends on, if you're a really good corner, oftentimes you're not going to get thrown to or attacked as much and have the opportunities to get interceptions. But Jacob Parrish led the team last year with 4 interceptions. Kobe Savage had 3. Kobe Savage, who, at Oregon now, probably as a backup. Will Lee had 2. Marquise Siegel had 1. Could have had probably 5, 6. Keenan Garber had 1. So who leads K-State interceptions, and what's the number you're setting it at? So a little different question. I'm not giving you an over-under here. I'm asking you who's going to lead the team in interceptions, and what is the number you're setting the leader at?
Well, I think you can go away from corners, like you said. I think we've seen that in the past. You can, if you want to go away from Keenan Garber, you can go away from Keenan Garber. If you want to go away from Jacob Parrish, you can go away from Jacob Parrish. It's hard to go away from a safety, especially the free safety of the K-State defense, where, schematically, they're putting themselves in a lot of one-on-one man coverage situations anyways. And if a quarterback sees man coverage, he's more likely to throw the ball into that vicinity. Combine that with Marquise Siegel being pretty good in zone and just knowing where to be, the right spot at the right time. You know what? Drop half the balls he did last year, and he's got quite a bit. So I'm going Siegel, and I'll put it at 4.5.
I thought this was like a real number. Aren't we taking like a real number?
But he said to set the line. So I'll say Marquise Siegel is the leader, and it's at 4.5.
Okay, well, I'm going to pick a real number because I don't think they tally interceptions like sacks. That'd be kind of cool if they did. Seeing a half pick for somebody. Yeah, I was literally thinking in my own, like, all right, well, I would go Siegel and go probably 3 or 4. Maybe, just to be a little bit different, I'll say 3 and say it gets spread around a little bit more. But DY's reasoning on why you would take a safety over a corner there, I think, is pretty spot on, especially when we saw Siegel be in the right place at the right time so many times last year. It still blows me away. So the only pick he had was in that KU game. That was the only one.
That's right.
And he also dropped one that game.
Man,
did he have a pick six opportunity in that game?
I believe so. Yeah.
He had one in Tech, I think in Lubbock too. At Texas
Tech. That's the funny thing is like a lot of the picks he dropped could have been pick sixes too.
I remember the one in Lubbock for sure. Yeah.
But to Siegel's credit, tied for the team lead with Jacob Parrish with pass breakups with 9. But if he could have translated some of those pass breakups to interceptions this year, K-State could be in a heck of a lot of fun.
Now maybe Parrish is the right answer because he the most pass breakups, the most interceptions, so he's getting a lot of targets. So,
yeah. I mean, I'm going to go with Siegel, though, for the very reason you outlined. I mean, the ability to, another year in the program. He was there at a lot of different chances last year in position to make the play. I think he does make the plays this year. And I like safety as the pick because they can kind of be a ball hawk that navigates around the field and uses their eyes to get in position to make a play. So I'm going to take Marquise Siegel. DY, I had actually set the over-under at 3.5 for him. I just didn't tell you guys, and I'm going to take the over and say that he gets 4 interceptions this year, which was tied with the team leader was last year, and Jacob Parrish.
That's why I had to be on brand and just go a little bit lower, just a little bit lower. That's great.
I have some balls.
Well, that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm not going to get swayed into being getting away from my roots and being too positive because of all of that.
Okay, but Cole, have some balls. You said the defense is going to carry this team more than the offense. The record-breaking offense is not going to be as good as the Kansas State defense, according to Cole, but the leading interception is only going to have 4.
I mean, that's because the secondary is so good that BJ Payne, who had 1 last year, is going to make a jump to 3. Keenan Garber, who had 1 last year, a pick 6 against Baylor, which, by the way, if you remember, K-State had 2 defensive touchdowns against Baylor in one game, and that was the only game I believe K-State had a defensive score last year. We'll talk about that in a moment after we tell you about home field apparel and toss to break. But I think Keenan Garber makes a jump in interceptions, and I think BJ Payne does. Jordan Riley, depth in the secondary. Uso's going to have a pick 6.
Keenan Garber should. He used to be a wide receiver, right?
Jordan Riley, man, that's a nice wild card there. Jordan Riley.
Well, what do you got to have Jordan Riley at? He's
not a wild card. He's a starter.
Well, wild card is in we haven't talked about him yet. We haven't talked about him in the discussion for most interceptions, and he's a newcomer. So we don't know exactly what he's going to be, which to me fits the bill for wild card. I'll give Jordan Riley 1. I'll give him 1. Yeah.
Wow. The wild card is 1.
I'll give him 0. I'll give him 0 because I don't think he gets spread around as much this year.
Okay.
I've got him at 7.5 is the number I set. So,
yeah. I was looking at our chat. I see the chat says there are 7 chats in there. I'm like, Cole, just pick 7. DY, did I see, are you wearing a Colorado shirt today?
I am.
You know they're in the conference, right?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Well, it is a home field Colorado shirt. Cole is visibly upset, visibly disturbed at this development. DY, what did you think of the Athlon Sports story about?
That's why I wore it. That's why I wore it. I always wear something of relevance. Go Buffs. Continue to bully your way into whatever you're trying to do and put off some fake masculinity while you do it, I guess.
Okay, well, You can get all your Colorado face masculinity gear that you want at homefieldapparel.com. They got their new football boxes for the season, and Colorado has one. I saw it. So does K-State, and that is the good news. If you want the K-State box that has year-round gear, okay? T-shirts, a hoodie, a hat, some socks, all kinds of awesome stuff. They dropped it all on social media, so if you want to go look at the K-State box and see what's in there, you can go see it on Homefield socials. They did a really nice job with the Twitter drop. It was cool to look at like every school, honestly. So if you have other people in your life that are fans of other schools, you can get those too. But these are exclusive items. You can only get them in this box. So make sure that you're ready to go for that at homefieldapparel.com. And if you go to homefieldapparel.com and shop either the boxes or the 50-plus other K-State items they have or the 100-plus other teams that they have, you can use promo code 3law2040 at 15% off your first order. That's all at homefieldapparel.com. We're back in just a moment.
We appreciate you supporting KC Sports Network by listening to our podcast. You have helped us become the highest-ranked Chiefs podcast network in 2022 and 2023. And don't forget about our daily Substack newsletter, the best written analysis you can find on the Chiefs straight to your inbox every day. kcsn.substack.com.
You guys have heard us lately tell you about the new way that you can get in touch with us on the show. All right. It is the good old Mint Mobile text line, KCSN hotline powered by Mint Mobile. It is 913-407-6524 to get a hold of us. 913-407-6524. When I say get a hold of us, obviously shoot us a text. Okay. It's 2024. Nobody's calling anybody on the phone anymore. Shoot us a text at 913-407-6524 if you have questions or comments about the show, particularly if you are a former athletic director at K-State, which is exactly what happened, Cole. We got a text from a former AD at K-State.
Yeah, John, I actually think he's not the actual real former athletic director at Kansas State, just to make sure we clear the air there. What? But yeah, official John Curry. Hello, official John Curry here.
It says official. What could be more official than that?
This question is for Mr. John Kurtz.
Yeah, we know this is from our Discord, I believe, user on there. Hello, official John Curry here. This question is for Mr. John Kurtz. You are such a nincompoop. Keegan Johnson is going to have over 1,500 yards this year. You really need to start drinking the purple Kool-Aid. John, what are your thoughts?
Well, my first thought is that nincompoop is like absolutely like S-tier diss to throw at somebody. That was excellent. That's a tough one to recover from, I got to be honest. And I think official John Curry just upped my Keegan Johnson prediction by 100 yards with that. I think that's what happened. Now, I don't know if I can get to 1,500. Cole, could you get to 1,500 with Keegan Johnson this year? What would it take, Cole, for you to get to 1,500 yards for Keegan Johnson this year?
Well, it'd take him playing probably 15 games, getting to the college football championship, maximizing the number of opportunities in games, and staying healthy, obviously. But even then, I don't believe I could get to 1,500. What's the school record for receiving yards by a wide receiver? It's got to be right around there, right? Isn't it like 1,600?
Probably whatever Tyler Lockett had in 2014, I would imagine.
What about Jordy in 2007?
I'll look it up while you
this. Yeah, I mean that's a good point because they were throwing it around a lot with Josh Freeman at that point in time. But Jake Waters has the school record for passing yards in the season, doesn't he? So probably 2014.
I think I actually probably have it.
Find it for a single season for receiving is in yard. That's receptions.
Keep in mind, by the way, as we discussed on the last show,
Jordy Nelson, 1,606.
Well, I said 1,600, then I said Jordy. Man.
Jordy Nelson in 2007 went for 1,606. Tyler Lockett does have a 1,500 season, though, 1,515 and 14.
Man,
so we had him nailed.
Rarefied company. I don't have Keegan Johnson quite there, but I feel comfortable, guys. I feel comfortable that Keegan Johnson will surpass the 700-yard number, and Jace Brown will surpass the 825 set. So
another Mint Mobile question. Hey guys, what do you attribute the long line of walk-on centers to? who's the most likely scholarship guy to break that streak. I know that the other guys will probably say a little bit of recruiting, and that's probably not non-zero part of this, but I do think it's more of a choice because they do have some options, right? I mean, if they didn't want to go that route, they could easily put Adley Panther at center and Adrian Line getting a guard. So I think it is a trust factor that they build in with some guys, and they stick with them throughout the long haul. There's a little bit of a stubbornness in a good way with some guys that they really trust and believe in, and I think they look for a certain trait that's not necessarily, performance-based or athletic-based on the field in their centers that we won't be able to pick up on, because I think Noah Johnson and Hayden Gillum are pretty similar in that way, and I imagine Sam Hecht follows that same formula. That said, I've heard that Sam Hecht has the potential to be quite a bit better than those two, so that plays into it. And just hearing Connor Riley talk on, what was it, Tuesday, I believe, and I think there is a certain element of him kind of preferring it that way almost. I don't know if that makes sense. Maybe not the walk-on part, but I remember the way he talked, on Tuesday, and I remember the way he talked in his first and second year of coaching at Kansas State. He believes that his group should reflect almost the culture and the fabric of what Kansas State is, and what better way to do that than with Kansas walk-on.
Yeah, the only observation I really have is if you're looking at the offensive line, and maybe, I don't know, maybe offensive lineman would come and kick my ass for saying this, but center would be, at least from an athleticism standpoint, a place where you could maybe not be quite as certainly tackle, right? It's going to be hard to be a walk-on playing tackle, right? You need certain athletic traits at tackle that are going to be harder to find in that kind of uncovered gem sort of way in a walk-on. Guard, maybe it's a little bit more negligible from guard to center. DY, you could certainly speak to this more so than I could. But it seems to me like the position on the offensive line where you could get away with having a little bit less athleticism. That is my observation there.
Yeah, you probably want to be a little bit, have a burst there because you got to kind of get out there and get out of your stance and pull, but from a length and just kind of freakish athleticism, you're probably right. And you're probably maybe need to be a little bit more, I don't know if diabolical is not the word I'm looking for, but intellectual.
Cerebral. You need a cerebral guy at center.
Yeah, a little bit more cerebral. And to answer the second part where he said, who's the most likely scholarship guy to break that streak? I would say Kyle Rockers. I think they brought him in as a scholarship guy to strictly play center, and I've heard good things out of him already. And he's only a true freshman, was here in spring ball.
Well, Connor Riley shouted him out yesterday. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's been mentioned by name multiple times now by Connor Riley already since spring ball started and then yesterday. So, yeah, one interesting observation about it. I don't have a lot of commentary on why it's happening. You guys already hit on that, but Connor Riley noted it's the third straight walk-on center that they've had in the program that's going to start in all likelihood. Sam Hecht being a Mill Valley kid from Kansas, Noah Johnson before him, a Wichita kid, played at Bishop Carroll. And then you have Hayden Gillum as well, a Kansas kid.
Where did he play?
Gosh, where did he play?
I don't know. I forget. I don't know the high school, but I know he's from Plainville, Kansas.
Yeah. And then, you could go all the way back to the Snyder era, and you had B.J. Finney, who ended up playing in the NFL, but from Andale and the Wichita area as well. So all Kansas kids that are the walk-on centers. I'm pulling up Hayden Gillum just real quick so we can let you know where he played. Plainville, Kansas, so assuming Plainville High School. And that is his high school. So, yeah, good question, good observation. Don't have a great answer to it, but hopefully Sam Hecht works out very well for Kansas State.
What I will say is Sam Hecht's older brother was a really good offensive lineman at the college level, so he's got good genes.
Did he play for Connor Riley at North Dakota State? Because he
not for him. He got recruited by him.
Okay.
They left before he ended up playing.
Okay. Did you hear Connor Riley say that Keegan Johnson coming out of high school, his final two schools were North Dakota State and Iowa?
No, Kansas State and Iowa. Yeah.
Oh, Kansas State and Iowa. Okay, that makes more sense. I was confused because he'd been talking about the previous school, and I was like, wait, hold on, North Dakota State. Okay.
He was a Bellevue West kid in Omaha area.
Yeah.
Kansas State, Iowa, Nebraska were his finalists.
Disregard. Okay, because I was I did a double take on that listening in the car. I was clearly I need to pay better attention. Okay, Cole, what's next?
All right, last year, K-State had 25 sacks as a team, 1.92 per game, ranked 81st in the country, ranked behind 8 other teams in the Big 12. It's an area of an improvement. The sack percentage last year, I think, was around 100th in the country as well. Overall, the year prior to that with Felix, they had 30 sacks, 2.14 per game, which ranked 71st and a tie in 4th in the 10-team Big 12. And the year before that, in 2021, they averaged 2.31 per game at 30 sacks and ranked in a tie for 58th in the country and 5th in the Big 12. So if you average all that out, K-State's averaged just over 28 sacks per season since 2021 and just over 2 sacks per game. And out of the 25 sacks recorded in 2023, the leading guys returning have combined for a total of 12 sacks. Leading sack guys from last year, Khalid Duke had 6. He's gone. Nate Matlack had 4. He's gone. The returning leader in sacks from the 2023 team is Cody Stufflebeam, who had 2. So similar to the question I asked on interceptions, again, I'm going to have you guys set the number here. Who leads K-State in sacks this year, and what is the number you're setting for that individual?
I'm going to take Brendan Mott because I think these are going to be spread out very, very evenly across the board, and the leader could be a tie between 3 or 4 guys, to be quite honest. I'll say 5.5, Brendan Mott. And the reason why I'm going with him is I do think they're still going to play him perhaps the most amount of snaps of all the defensive ends, and he could be the biggest beneficiary of there being quality defensive ends on the other side of him now.
Yeah, listening to the discussion about like how they would use them and that Joe Klanderman saying like they have the potential to use them more situationally this year because they have so much depth. And like he brought up the example of the Oklahoma game a couple of years ago where guys were just gassed and they had, like defensive tackles out there trying to rush the passer. They don't think they'll be in that situation anymore. It all lends itself to being very spread out. I mean, the number that jumped immediately to my mind was like, you're probably looking at a bunch of guys between like 3 and 6 sacks on the season. So yeah, I think 5.5 is like a perfect over under for that. I guess I'll say like 5. Somebody comes up with 5, and it's a lame answer. Nothing against Brendan Mott, but like you're playing the odds there by saying Mott. I mean, he's been around. That he'll probably be on the field for more snaps than everybody else there, and like he's one of those guys that just has such a high motor and is going to be going all the time that if he can clean up a lot of stuff. It's not like they're all going to be like just pretty Felix coming off the edge, crush somebody like TCU in the Big 12 championship game. It's going to be, more effort sacks when a play breaks down. And you've got a lot of coverage on the back end that they feel great about. So I think Brendan Mott, cleaning some of that stuff up gets in the 5 to 6 range.
And he's been higher than that before. So
yeah, yes.
In 2022, Brendan Mott ranked 6th in the Big 12 with 6 sacks. Now he was playing alongside Felix that year. Last season.
This could be a similar situation now, I think. Yeah.
Last season, he had just 1 sack. He wasn't able to get the pressure he wanted. K-State as a team didn't
also hurt. He was also hurt last year.
Yeah, we know his goal was to get bigger, stronger, to create more of a rush. We also know that's a team goal for Joe Klanderman, and they're going to make some tweaks up front to try and generate more of a pass rush and do some unique things on the defensive line. I had actually set the over-under for Brendan Mott at 4.5. Wasn't far off from you. I'd probably lean toward taking the over on Mott, but the team leader in sacks this year, guys, is going to be Toby Osunsami. So the kid is going to get out on the field in third down pass rush situations, and he's going to get after it. I'm telling you.
That would have been my second choice.
That was my bold prediction when I went over the defensive ends with the written piece on KSO. But I don't think it's going to happen, but I think that's the perfect bold prediction for the defensive ends. The reason why I don't think so, I just don't know if he's going to get enough snaps.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be the challenge. He's going to probably come in obvious pass rush situations. I have him getting 6 sacks to lead the team.
He got one last year in a non-con, right? He got one against
Troy, I think. It was a strip sack, right?
Yeah. He had a strip sack late in the game against Troy.
Yeah. And just DY, you've written how much bigger and stronger he is, and Joe Klanderman said he's still one of the fastest guys on the team despite putting on even more weight.
He's got more weight. I will say he's not the longest guy in the world, though. But comparatively speaking, that might be because that room is a lot longer now with guys like Jordan Allen, Chidi Obiaizer. Brendan Mott's even really long. but Toby doesn't have that kind of length.
Yeah. And just, I'd set for the over-unders on the other guys, because there's so many unknowns and they're going to rotate so many guys, I had just blanket set for Jordan Allen, Cheedy, and Ryan Davis, and those guys, Travis Bates. I'd set it.
Bates could be the one that surprises a little bit, because it was at the FCS level, but he has played college football, and he was really good as a freshman.
Yeah. I'd set it at 2.5 for most of those guys on the over-under. But again, we haven't seen Jordan Allen play. We haven't seen Ryan Davis play. Cheedy played minimal last year, but, has the size and length. And
Toby's never played DN.
Yeah. But Toby's going to lead the team with 6. So, which is what Khalid Duke had.
The more and more I do it, and I fell in, not necessarily, the trap's a wrong word, but I fell into that when I went with the bold prediction with Toby. But the more and more I think about it, even more of a wild card could be Travis Bates.
Yeah. We're going to jump to special teams here in just a moment, guys. But I guess I'll let you weigh in if you want, because one of the things Joe Klanderman said that they really emphasize as well is third down defense. Last year, opponents were 54 of 179 on third downs against K-State. That's 30.2%. That ranked 11th in the country. Texas was number 2 in the Big 12. K-State was behind them. If you look at Utah as well, last year, they're number 8 at 29.5%. In 2022, K-State opponents converted 34% on third downs. Again, number 26 in the country and number 3 in the Big 12. For the Wildcats, I don't know if you can get really an accurate over-under on third downs. I set it at 35%, but I'm really just giving you guys that number for context of how good they've been on third downs the last 2 years, and let you weigh in if you have any thoughts.
I think they could be even better, just because I agree with you that the defense is, especially in the first half of the season, is going to be the strength of Kansas State. And I think this could be the best season under Joe Klanderman. And I know he had that defense with Juju Prince and Felix Ndike Uzama and Daniel Green. I mean, Josh Hayes, Echo Boydo. They had a lot of guys coming back on that team. This one has even more guys coming back, and maybe even more talent across the board. Maybe not the star power in the number 1 or 2 spots, but just as the breadth of talent at every level. I think this one has it. The one thing that worries me a little bit is they have to get better in the interior of the defensive line. If that comes along enough, this is the best defense under Joe Klanderman.
I would just say, from a consistency standpoint, for what I've said on the rest of the show and where I've been on the defense, I think if they're going to be a top 3 defense in the Big 12, like I predicted earlier, it's going to have to be with third down defense that is pretty in line with what they've been the last couple of years. So yeah, if it's 35%, I think I've got to be higher. And when I say higher, like, they will be better than 35%. It will be a lower percentage.
Yeah, and 35 is a good number. I mean, if they do that, that's pretty solid. And then red zone defense, guys, is one of the other things Joe Klanderman highlighted. And if you go to like NCAA.com and pull up the stats, like when you talk about red zone defense, it's going to show you how often your opponent scores in the red zone, and it factors in field goals as well. And I don't love looking at that.
No, they love touchdown rate. They use touchdown rate. Yeah.
I like touchdown rate. So I went through and looked at the touchdowns allowed versus red zone opportunities, and K-State allowed touchdowns on only 13 of their opponents' 33 red zone trips last year, which was 39%. And I think, DY, that I haven't gotten through all the teams before this show, but that might be the best mark in college football.
It was second in the country to Michigan, because Michigan had an unreal defense.
Well, see, and I have Michigan, according to it, at 11 touchdowns on 25 opportunities.
Also, they didn't have enough opportunities, but they had the least amount of touchdowns. That's what it was. Yeah. Because they didn't allow teams to get there either. Michigan was unreal.
Yeah, like Iowa State allowed 54% touchdown rate. Notre Dame was the other.
It was something they focused on all year last year, and they literally brought up in almost every weekly press conference during the season because they were really bad at it the year prior.
Yeah, they made a huge jump because the year prior they allowed 27 touchdowns on 40 attempts, which was 67.5%. Last year, first of all, they also tied for the 5th fewest red zone attempts allowed in the country last year, which is 33. So they did a good job of keeping teams out of the red zone, or they gave up probably too many explosives. Overall.
Iowa State.
Yeah.
The Iowa State game, literally, if you remove the Iowa State game from the Kansas State statistical production over last season, their defensive numbers were insane.
Iowa State and Missouri, in terms of explosives, I feel like there were multiple plays of where they busted and weren't in the red zone a lot.
Literally, Texas's offense was 80-yard touchdown or throw an interception.
Yeah.
Right? It's what it felt like.
Yeah. Tied for second fewest passing touchdowns allowed in the red zone in the country with 5, and third fewest rushing touchdowns allowed in the red zone with 8 last year. So we'll see if they can continue to be really good in the red zone. I don't know how sustainable that is, DY. Like, is that?
I don't know if it's a fluke stat or not, but as much as they put emphasis on it, it's something to think about, though. Because, I've always been told by coaches anywhere and everywhere, you are what you emphasize. So that's something to think about. Just like you can emphasize turnovers, but they also say turnovers a luck thing. Is it? Or do you make your own luck, right? One of those things. Before you get into special teams, I have like 5 either-ors on defense.
Okay.
Who has a better season, Uso Seumalo or Damian Ilalio?
Damian.
I got Damian, too.
I like Damian, but I think Uso is going to make a bigger jump than a lot of people think after having another year of experience in playing college football. So I'm going to take Uso to be different than you guys.
Better season, Chidi Obiizor or Jordan Allen?
Chidi.
I get Chidi because he's going to play more. Although if Jordan comes in and splashes, then he plays more. Better season, Desmond Purnell or Austin Moore?
Desmond.
I like Desmond more, but
Austin Moore had 12.5 tackles for loss last year. Desmond had 4.5. Desmond was really good, though, as well.
He does different things, yeah.
He does.
It's a different position, different responsibility.
Yeah, I think Dez has a little bit more playmaking ability, perhaps. I'll go with Austin Moore, though. Just the veteran guy, 6-year guy. Got to be respectful of Austin, and I think he'll have a really nice season for the Wildcats.
Better season, Asa Newsome or Austin Romaine?
Ooh.
We're same class. That's why I did this.
Probably Romaine, just because the one variable I have right now is the health, and he did play more last year. He seems like he would be further along.
Yeah, he's played more. He might start. I think he's maybe primed to have a big year, and Ace is still a bit of a question.
Yeah, I could do what DY did on the offense over-unders and say, in 2025,
yes, that's a good way to put it. Or although Austin Romaine keeps at this trajectory, he might be hard to catch.
Yeah, Asa Newsome, as you guys know, I talked about him before, was one of my favorite recruits in a long time, and I think he can be a star if he can recover fully and be himself out there. But I'll take Austin Romaine this year because of the health factor in that question. I think it's going to take Asa a few games to get really back into the groove of things, so I'll take Romaine.
And the last one for the defense would be Keenan Garber or Jacob Parrish. A tough one. I'm probably going to go Garber because he's played it so little, and last year was his first full season that I think he might take off, and then Parrish take off after that. I'm going to go Keenan.
Boy, I still really like Jacob Parrish. I'm going to go Parrish.
They're very similar.
Yeah, I will give a lean to Parrish because he's played the position longer and has gotten a little bit more experience. And I love Parrish. Like, I think his game is terrific. I love Garber, man. I'm excited to see what he does with another year in the program at corner. But I'll give a lean to Parrish. Did you say you had Garber? DY?
I'll take Garber because I think there's a chance that he can literally super duper explode. I have a few on offense, but that we never did. But
we can do that. We'll do that on the offensive preview then that we do when we break down offense and defense even more in depth on a couple shows that we'll release later this month as well. So we'll hit on that. Well, speaking of Desmond and Keenan, those were the two guys that had defensive touchdowns last year. I guess I'll throw in real quick over-under on defensive TDs for the team. I think 2 is probably the number to set it at, not including special teams.
I would say 2.5. So you do the same as last year or more. Yeah.
Yeah, 2.5.
I'll say more just because I think this team's going to be more disruptive on defense.
That's hard. It's hard though. I think they'll get 2. I'll give them 2.
Okay. All right. I'll take the over.
I'll say special teams are going to get 1 too. At least
actually, to be honest, I think they'll push. Because I'm not counting special teams. If I counted special teams,
it's not a push. You got to go under. It's 2.5. I said it at 2.5.
I thought I said it at 2.
No, I said it at 2.5.
I'm taking under then. I'll take the under.
It probably, to your guys' credit, it's probably 2. 3's a lot for a season.
Yeah. All right. Let's jump to John's favorite subject. John, anything to say about Chili Davis and his NFL pedigree? How's he doing in the NFL? You keeping tabs?
I'm not gonna slam anybody after they're gone, but yeah, I mean, I felt like it left something to be desired last year. They could have been a lot better special teams wise. I also think this year it's because of the new rules with everybody being able to be like an actual on-field coach now, like, no limits to what you're doing with the coaching staff. It's a lot easier to get special teams better. And I don't know, maybe that's a discussion point, like across college football. Maybe special teams in general will be better because of that. But I am very excited. by what K-State has done.
What was the play that frustrated you guys most on special teams last year? Is there like a particular play in a game that maybe still sticks out in your mind?
I will say it was the multiple kicks out of bounds. It was
I forgot about that. That happened all the time.
Multiple kicks out of bounds, poor tackling on the kick and punt return, and being so ineffective as a return that you're fair catching it. And that just seemed like the antithesis to Kansas State football, that you became one of those teams that fair caught every kickoff.
Yeah, the return unit struggled, and we'll get into that in just a minute. I also like the fake punt against Oklahoma State when they were at midfield, and I was just like being punt safe in case State wasn't ready for it early in that game. The Texas game and the botched extra point snap when they weren't ready for it.
No. Oh, okay. Yeah, no.
That one was the most consequential.
That's the answer, and that's a hard, like, I'm talking about being frustrated with Chili Davis. That's a hard one to be frustrated at Chili Davis because, I mean, I guess I don't. Did they talk about it after the game? I assume we're putting that on Flatner, right? I mean, and that's was like the leader of the special teams unit and been around for 17 years. So, like, I don't know.
Forget. All I know, I can remember. I don't think the holder was even paying attention, though.
Yeah, I don't remember. I mean, look, and I will give due that, like, special teams made some big plays down the stretch of the season. The KU game, Keenan Garber returned the blocked extra point for a 2-point conversion. They had the fumble recovery on the muff punt, though it was a bad punt, which led to the muff fumble recovery against KU. Against North Carolina State in the bowl game, they ran the fake punt to perfection for 30-plus yards. Jack Bloomer did for a first down in the first half of that game. And Seth Porter returned a punt for a touchdown in that game, but it was called back due to a questionable, I think, illegal block in the back. So they played better down the stretch, but we'll get into the special teams here. Special teams FEI rankings, guys. So K-State last year in Brian Freemau's FEI rankings ranked 47th in the country in special teams, which sounds better than it probably was, but that is the worst for a K-State special teams unit since 2010. The 2010 team ranked 48th in FEI rankings. If you look at Bill Connolly's numbers and SP Plus rankings, K-State ranked 90th in the country. Only OU, UCF, and Houston were worse in the Big 12. They had a minus 0.8, and his special teams SP Plus, that's the worst since, I went back through the Kleiman era, 2019. That's the worst by far that K-State's been on special teams. K-State ranked 115th in Brian Freemau's kick return efficiency in the country last year, and 53rd in punt return efficiency. Only the kick return efficiency in 51st in 2022. It was by far and away the worst. And then you talked about returns, BY. 102nd in the country in kick returns last year at 18.1 yards per return. That ranked 13th out of 14 Big 12 teams. 107th in punt returns at 4.56 yards per punt return. They didn't have a single special teams touchdown via the return to units last year. And I actually pulled the numbers. In Kleiman's first 4 seasons, 2019 to 2022, K-State had 12 special teams touchdown, an average of 3 per season. If you break it out, they had 4 punt return touchdowns, 2 blocked punt, bad snap touchdowns. There was one where the snap, I believe, went over the head. K-State recovered it. And then 6 kick return touchdowns. And K-State had recorded at least 1 special team score in 17 of the prior 18 seasons heading into 2023. That marked just the second time last year since 2005 that K-State did not have a special team score. They had 35 special teams touchdowns since 2009, an average of 2.3 per season. So that's a lot. And I say all of that because Kansas State now has brought in a new special teams coach and 16-year NFL head coach or coaching veteran of special teams, Nate Katzer, who is a Scott City native, and the Wildcats added him this offseason to the coaching staff. And Chris Kleiman has not been shy away about, speaking to what he has added to this program, and they've added Dylan Edwards as well to potentially give some explosiveness to the return unit. So all of that being said, I guess let's start here, like over under on special teams touchdowns in 2023, and I'll set it at 2.5. 2024, by the way, sorry.
I thought you were going to set it at 1.5. I would have went over.
2.
2.5, I'll still say over. Because I'll say they get 2 returns and maybe like a punt block field goal, something crazy.
I love Dylan Edwards, man. I'll give him 3. I'll give him 3.
Yeah,
I will. I don't know how it seems like we get new kickoff and rules every year, and they're all kind of more guided towards it being more difficult to get kickoff.
Yeah, you know what? You are right about that.
I don't know if there's any new ones this year is what I was going to say, though. But if there are, there's probably to make it even tougher. It seems like that's what they always do. So that's one thing that holds me back a little. And punt return, that's just a harder thing to do. Also a little bit more dangerous for Dylan.
That's what makes back to the David Allen era, man. It's just crazy what David Allen did with all the punt returns at that point in time. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, you're almost talking me into back down.
And
it's safer to go under. I'll go under.
And nothing against Phil Brooks, but he made a career out of being considered an elite punt and kick returner out of what he did to KU in one game.
Yeah, now he had the nice return against Missouri in 2022 as well. I think he had a punt return against Navy for a touchdown in the Liberty Bowl as well. But, I mean, Dylan Edwards is certainly a whole different level of explosiveness.
He is. It's just almost a different game now. That's the only thing. I think you can do damage on field position without scoring too, right? So.
Remember what Texas did to K-State in 2022? They kept kicking it to the corner on kickoffs, and K-State kept bringing it out.
That's what everybody does now. You're supposed to do it. That's how it's taught. Yeah.
So maybe that's why K-State had so many kickoffs out of bounds last year. John sent them out of bounds and gave the opponents good field position. Not a single punt return over 30 yards last year for the Wildcats. Not a single kick return of 40 yards.
I know you don't. I mean, 10 yards is still technically a lot, and I get it. But almost a kick out of bounds, too, is a little bit less painful anymore just because they give it to you on a 25 on a fair catch anyway, though.
All right. Chris Tennant went 11 of 14 on field goals last year. Honestly, Chris Tennant, you look at the numbers in the grand scheme of things, 11 of 14 is not bad. 56 of 57 on extra points. On field goals, the big knock is going to be he went 4 of 6 on field goal attempts of 20 to 29 yards, but he was 7 of 8 on 30-yarders through 50-plus yards, went 2 of 2 on 30 to 39, and 4 of 4 on 40 to 49, and then went 1 of 2 on 50-plus yard attempts.
So basically, he only missed one field goal over 30 yards. No, it was a really good year, and he's just held to a very hard standard because of how he crumpled in that first year and had his job taken by Ty Zedner. So anytime he missed something, it was like, oh, here we go again, when he only missed 1 over 30 yards. Now, he can't miss 2 under 30, but he only missed 1 over 30. He missed an extra point. And then I've even had people say, well, he had that extra point issue with Texas. That wasn't him. I think people have this, for some reason, this weird memory that it was Chris Tennant's fault at Texas.
Well, I think when you miss short, people remember that more than when you miss long. You miss long, people
right, but
write it off in their head pretty easily. And
say, but if you only miss 3 times, 98% of college football will take that.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with that, but throughout his career, the problem has always been the short stuff. And
that is very true.
That makes people nervous when you're lining up for a shorter field goal. That's a drive that you feel like you got to finish off more than if you're maybe stealing a little bit on a 50-yard field goal, something like that. So that's the psyche and the what he's battling from a perception standpoint with people.
Yeah, and just how bad that was in year one, to the point that Chris Kleiman had to remove him from the kicker job. That's a stain that won't go away until you absolutely make people not paranoid, which I don't know what that will take. I'll tell you what, his best moment was when they bounced back and made a field goal against Texas to send it in overtime, right?
Yeah, he made that one, but he missed the one earlier, right? Just right before that, the short one. Yeah, and then K-State got it back, and he made the harder field goal that was 40-plus to send it to
That took some balls after just missing it.
Credit to him, man. I mean, he 11 of 14 is not a bad percentage. Good accuracy from 30 on.
If you could consider that improvement from year 1 to year 2, I mean, year 3 and 4 should be a breeze, you would think.
Yeah, he was 9 of 14 from field goals in the 2022 season before he was removed. I think he missed 2 extra points, 23 of 25 that year as well. So it's the extra points, like he missed 3 of those. So look, I mean, let's over under on missed extra points.
Putter. He's a bad putter.
Hey, look, Chris, like if you give me a gimme putt, I'm taking it because I will miss the 3-foot putt if you give it to me for par. There's no way I'm making it. Well, let's just set the over under on missed extra points at a half for Chris Tennant.
I'll probably go over.
Over. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
I'll go under. Chris, I believe in you. I don't know how I said it. I don't know how I set a number on field goals.
I would say misses would be at 3.5. So worse than last year or the same or better?
I'll take the under just because I got K-State scoring 1 million touchdowns on offense and no field goals.
What I will say, with as explosive as Kansas State should be on offense, it should also result in less field goal attempts.
I think Chris Tennant will have a fine year.
I do too.
All right. There we go. I do. I mean, Chris Tennant's now going to year 4, I believe, in the program. I think, and, we talked to people before when he came to K-State, and they thought he could be one of the best kickers in school history. The talent's there. It's a mental thing with kickers often, and I think he will come along this year and carry on and build momentum from his success last year as he got better as the season went. I think he'll have a really good year.
All right. Don't say that we don't care about special teams, people. We just gave you like 20 minutes on special teams. Hope everyone's happy there. Nate Katzer, shout out to my guy. Looking forward to that. Thank you to all of our sponsors. As always, Home Field, Holiday, Alinco, Mint Mobile. Hit us up on that Mint Mobile text line, especially if you are a former athletic director at school. I'm still unconvinced that was not the real John Curry that did text us, 913-407-6524. In order to do that, if you have questions or comments. And thank you to Nick behind the scenes. For Derek and Cole, I'm John. Thanks for listening to another 3 Mo.